Have you ever had a conversation that stayed with you for the rest of your life? Not because of the words alone, but because of the soul behind them. Today, I want to take you on a quiet walk down memory lane. Not just mine, but perhaps yours too. This is not a story about fame or fortune. It's about the quiet strength of one old man, my grandfather, and the timeless wisdom he passed on to me that the world seems to have forgotten. The quiet chair by the window. He sat in the same chair every morning, by the window where the sun slipped in gently, bathing the room in a kind of golden hush. It wasn't a fancy chair, just old wood and worn-out fabric. But that spot was sacred. That was where he thought, where he sipped black coffee slowly like time didn't exist, where he watched the world not to judge it, but to understand it. As a child, I used to think he was doing nothing. Now I know he was doing everything. He was listening, observing, practicing the kind of patience that today feels extinct. One morning I asked him, "Grandpa, aren't you bored just sitting here all the time?" He smiled, the kind of smile that holds back stories and lets silence say more than words ever could. Then he leaned in and said, "Boy, boredom is what happens when your soul is too noisy to hear the world whisper." I didn't get it then. I barely get it now. But I've come to realize that we've all become so addicted to noise that stillness feels like punishment. Grandpa taught me the opposite, that silence is sacred and boredom is just a door waiting to open. The art of doing one thing well. My grandfather was a shoemaker, not by passion but by necessity. Every day he'd walk into his dusty little workshop at the back of the house, smelling of leather and oil and time. He didn't talk much while working, but he'd hum low, songs from a generation I'd never know. He once told me, "The world will tell you to chase everything, but life respects the man who learns to do one thing well." That one sentence hit me harder than a college diploma ever could. We're taught to hustle, multitask, brand ourselves, post updates. But Grandpa? He stitched one shoe at a time, slowly, carefully, with his full presence. He wasn't rich, but I watched customers leave his shop smiling, their souls repaired and their spirits lifted. He didn't chase success. He became excellent. And that was enough. What if we've been taught all wrong? What if the secret to fulfillment isn't doing more, but doing less, with more heart? The language of hands. My grandfather's hands were a storybook, scarred, calloused, strong. When he held yours, you felt anchored, like no storm could take you. Those hands didn't just fix shoes. They built things, held babies, buried friends, held prayers. One evening I remember him holding my hand longer than usual. I was going through something, a heartbreak, the kind that feels like your chest is caving in. I didn't say a word, but he knew. He rubbed his thumb against mine and said, "There's strength in not fixing everything. Sometimes you just hold." It was the most fatherly thing anyone's ever done for me. No advice, no solution, just presence. In a world obsessed with answers, my grandfather reminded me that sometimes presence is the answer. His hands had wrinkles like river paths. They had stitched, lifted, comforted, and survived. I wonder what story your hands tell. Have they reached out enough? Have they held back love when they should have held it close? The lessons between the words. Not all wisdom comes dressed as quotes or speeches. Sometimes it lives in the space between words, in the way someone walks through grief without bitterness, in the way they show up every day without needing applause. My grandfather never gave TED Talks, he never wrote a book, but he lived in such a way that every moment felt like a lesson, if you paid attention. He once said, "When you're old, you don't remember the trophies. You remember the Tuesday mornings, the laughter over burnt toast, the feeling of your dog's head on your knee. That's life." He believed in family dinners, in eye contact, in thank you notes. He believed a man's character was measured not by what he did when people were watching, but by what he chose not to do when no one was. He taught me to apologize quickly, forgive slowly, and never go to bed angry. "You don't own tomorrow," he'd say. "So live today with clean hands and a soft heart." I didn't always understand him. Sometimes I rebelled. Sometimes I thought he was just old-fashioned. But as the years have passed, I've realized he wasn't behind the times. He was ahead of them. What I carry now, my grandfather is gone now. The chair by the window sits empty, but somehow still full of echoes, of teachings, of the kind of man he was. I visit that house sometimes, I walk past the shop, and when I see an old pair of shoes, I remember how much wisdom can live in the quiet corners of ordinary life. I carry him in small things, the way I hold my coffee cup, the way I speak to strangers, the way I remind myself that being a good man has nothing to do with being loud. He once told me, the goal is not to impress the world, but to leave behind a light that helps someone else find their way. I hope, in some small way, I'm doing that. If you've made it this far, I hope something in my grandfather's story reminded you of someone in your life, maybe a grandparent, maybe even the kind of person you're becoming. Because the truth is, elder wisdom isn't just about age. It's about depth, stillness, heart. And in a world moving too fast to think, perhaps what we need most is to remember the ones who slowed down long enough to truly live. Don't forget to call your grandparents today, or sit with the elders in your life. Ask them stories. Let their silence teach you. You'll be surprised how much life is hiding in the things they don't say. This is the Stoic Elder, and if this story touched you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who could use a little wisdom today. Until next time, stay grounded, stay kind, and always listen for the whispers of time.